impeachment proceedings are set now for tomorrow. The Democrats say that Trump is a danger to the democracy after the bloodshed at the Capitol. Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz joins me now. And Congressman, it is clear that there's not enough time for a thorough impeachment proceeding. So we know this is sort of public humiliation and the attempt to bar President Trump from any future presidential runs. Is that an adequate goal? Is that now the time for these kind of things in your mind?
This is impeachment by reflex, Charles, and while the goal is to try to kick President Trump on his way out of office, my suspicion is it may actually make President Trump stronger because, as you saw him making the case, this continues to give him, I think, a narrative to bring to the country that we accomplished great things during the Trump presidency, but it was in spite of Democrat leaders in Congress who were more eager to deplatform, delegitimize, and destroy the president than to actually work toward the goals of the American people. And speaking of the American people, they're sort of the ones lost in all of this. You know, this should be the Biden honeymoon period where they're laying out their policies and celebrating their cabinet picks, but bringing an impeachment to a presidential transition would be like bringing your mistress on your honeymoon. It's creating a bunch of discord and I think an environment that's not all that productive for either political party.
So the bottom line is you think this actually will embolden President Trump and his followers rather than sort of taking the air out of Trumpism?
I think this is building a sense of grievance among many Americans who still have legitimate questions about the operations of the 2020 election, who still want to see our election process improved, and who still want to see America put first in the decisions that are made in Washington. Joe Biden represents a return of the establishment, and while there are plenty of people inside the Beltway who will celebrate that, there will still be a large constituency throughout the country who will back the policies of President Trump and who still have great affection for him. I'm one of those Americans, and it's my suspicion that he will return to Florida and that he will begin building platforms so that we're not completely canceled as folks who are more on the conservative right in our country.
But to be clear, there's bipartisan outrage. In fact, you have a lot of members in your party, including New York Republican Congressman Tom Reed, who is now proposing an alternative to what he says would hold President Trump responsible. He's talking about censure, right? Would you consider voting for that? And should there be any legislative punishment for President Trump?
I believe it was a big mistake for the Republican leader to float the idea of censure as an alternative to impeachment. President Trump encouraged protesters to be peaceful and patriotic. They were neither of those things. They were a disgrace to our country when they breached the Capitol and put our Congress and put really the operations of our day at great risk. So I think the president is being unfairly blamed for this, and I think Republicans who are sort of singing along with the chorus of censure will not find themselves with much support in either political party. It's not like the Democrats are going to love him anymore for this, and there are a lot of people throughout America who do not want to see this president censured or impeached, and I think those Americans deserve a voice.
Representative Gaetz, the FBI warning that there are plans for armed protests in all 50 capitals, including Washington, D.C., in the days leading up to the inauguration. Two things. Should these protests go on? And if you had an opportunity to speak to the people who are doing these protests, what would you say to them?
America is not a country where political violence is necessary or acceptable. If you have an intent to try to go and hurt another person as a consequence of your politics or theirs, no, you do so without any of the support of the president, of any of the leaders who have backed the president for the last 4 years on Capitol Hill. I think peaceful protest is healthy. I think criticism can make our elections better. Certainly in my home state of Florida, when people criticized us, we got our act together and became a model for the country. So debate, criticism are okay. Hurting people, trying to use politics as a basis for violence is not, and that's whether it's left-wing or right-wing activity.
Right. Congressman Gaetz, thank you very much.
Thank you, Charles.
This is Congressman Matt Gaetz. If you liked that video, make sure you like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on social media, and join us on our daily podcast, Hot Takes with Matt Gaetz, on your favorite podcast listening platform.